On a spring morning, a light mist covers the maple forest next to the Toronto Zoo, where elderly veterinarian Edward Harris lives. He retired after more than 40 years of caring for deer, but his love of nature never waned. In a small cabin on the edge of the woods, his only close friend is his loyal black Labrador named Cooper. Every morning, Edward makes coffee, opens the old notebook, and sits on the porch, letting Cooper rest his head on his lap. Their life is peaceful and simple, with only the sound of the wind blowing through the trees and the golden sunlight filtering through the leaves. Little did he know that one morning very soon, that tranquility would be replaced by miracle. That day, as dawn broke, Edward went out to the porch but did not find Cooper waiting for him as usual. He softly called its name, his deep, hoarse voice echoing through the quiet forest, but only the sound of birds responded. Anxiety made him quickly put on his sweater, pick up the flashlight hanging on the wall and quickly step out of the porch. The damp ground from the previous night's rain clearly showed Cooper's round footprints leading deep into the dense forest. He followed the footprints, his heart pounding, a series of terrible hypotheses ringing in his head. The forest was strangely silent, except for the sound of the wind gently passing through the leaves falling on the cold, wet ground. As Edward was about to turn back, he saw a familiar dark figure stepping out from between the tall trees. It was Cooper, but his mouth was closed around something that looked strangely soft and small. As it approached, he was shocked to see that it was a newborn tiger cub, unconscious and soaked. He stood still, his eyes scanning the forest warily, afraid that the tigress might be lurking somewhere. Finding no sign of the adult tiger, he whispered, "Cooper, put it down, be careful, son." Cooper gently lowered the cub onto the rotting leaves, his brown eyes shining with worry and trust. Edward knelt down, his trembling hands touching the small body that was cold and barely breathing. His professional instincts took over and he picked up the animal, feeling the fragility of its fading life. He ran home, holding the tiger cub tightly in his woolen coat to keep the last bit of warmth. In the small room filled with the smell of medicine and pine, Edward placed the tiger cub on the wooden table and turned on the light to check. He checked his heart rate and pulse and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that weak vital signs remained. Cooper stood beside him, groaning quietly, his eyes filled with fear and hope. Edward injected him with a life support shot, administered fluids, and gently massaged his chest to restore circulation. He took a towel to dry it, wrapped it in a warm blanket and placed it near the fireplace to keep it warm. Now, the house is quiet except for the ticking of the clock and the fragile breathing of the tiger cub. As the light shone through the window, the tiger cub moved slightly for the first time, causing Edward to smile in relief. Edward knew he had to immediately notify the authorities to find the origin of this lost creature. He picked up the old landline and called the Wildlife Division of the Toronto Zoo. "I am Edward Harris, a retired veterinarian. I found a tiger cub in the forest. It looked very weak," he said. 30 minutes later, the sound of a pickup truck echoed from the trail leading into the woods. Two rangers, Alex Thompson and Maria Collins, stepped down, carrying first aid kits and looking surprised. They found Cooper lying next to the warm blanket, where the cub was sleeping soundly in Edward's arms. He told the whole story, from Cooper's disappearance to bringing the cub back. Alex was silent for a moment, then whispered, "We're looking for a tiger cub that went missing from the zoo 3 days ago. This must be it." The cub was placed in a heated transport crate, while Cooper watched, his ears flattened nervously. Edward climbed into the carriage with them, his hands clasped together, his eyes on the small creature under his protection. At the Toronto Zoo's medical station, doctors quickly checked the tiger cub's health. X-ray machines, syringes and medical equipment flashed in the urgent atmosphere of the veterinary emergency room. The results showed no broken bones, just severe exhaustion from days of hunger and dehydration. A doctor gave the tiger cub extra fluids and an energy shot to help it quickly regain consciousness. When its little eyes opened, it cried softly, the sound weak but full of life. Maria smiled, gently stroked its head and said, "Welcome back, little one." Cooper barked softly, making everyone laugh. The atmosphere in the room became warmer. Edward stood beside him, eyes filled with tears, his hand on Cooper's shoulder as if thanking his friend for performing a miracle. The head doctor said this tiger cub is the youngest of Mother Aria, and is living with 2 others in the enclosure. Word quickly spread, setting the stage for an emotional reunion in the zoo's largest tiger cage. As the cage door opened, Aria, the mother tiger, let out a soft roar, the sound filled with trembling and longing. The tiger cub was placed on the grass, it staggered a few steps before raising its head to look around for its mother. In a split second, Aria rushed forward, sniffed her child all over, and rubbed her cheeks, making a deep, loving sound. The 2 tigers also came over and lovingly licked their youngest brother's head as if to welcome him back. The roar echoed throughout the sanctuary, the sound of reunion after days of loss. Edward stood outside the fence, his heart filled with emotion and simple happiness. Cooper sat beside her, his tail wagging gently, his eyes shining with joy at seeing the little creature revived. Maria captured that moment, a photo of love between man, dog and tiger spread throughout the zoo staff. Alex said softly, "Not everyone has the opportunity to witness a sacred moment like this." Edward smiled and replied in a low voice, "Miracles always happen when we know how to love properly." The next day, Edward and Cooper returned to visit the tiger cub in the zoo's care. Under the golden sunlight, the tiger cub lay curled up next to its mother, its clear eyes looking out at the blue sky. Seeing Edward, Aria slightly raised her head and let out a low roar as a deep thank you. Cooper sat quietly outside the fence, watching the tiger family, barking softly as if to say goodbye. Edward bent down and stroked Cooper's head, whispering, "We did the right thing, my faithful friend." On the way back, fallen yellow maple leaves covered the path, light glittering among the quiet forest canopy. In his heart, a small story had come to an end, a story about compassion and the bond between species.